Welcome to Across the Goal Line, live from the field. Take it away, Corey.
Welcome to another edition of Across the Goal Line, coming to you from the field. Corey Maines with me as always is Luke Gottesart, and today we have some variety in the topic list as we'll talk about how the NBA and NHL Drafts played out this past weekend, as well as taking a look at the NHL awards and the schedules that recently came out. We also will take a look at how Wimbledon is taking shape as it began on Monday. We, of course, always have your weekly NASCAR result. To kick off the show today, we'll have our results for the college baseball and softball World Series. But before we get to that, we'd like to dedicate this episode to two sports legends that have passed away recently, and that is Pat Summitt and Buddy Ryan.
Yeah, Pat Summitt passed away yesterday morning. She has been suffering from dementia the past 4 years. So rest in peace, Pat Summitt. She's the all-time wins leader in college basketball history for men's and women's, but that should be broken by Coach K from Duke here in the next couple years. He's only about 60 wins shy of that mark. And then also Buddy Ryan, the creator of the 46 defense in the world of football. He has two sons who are currently coaching in the NFL, both on the Buffalo Bills. His son, and they're twin boys. His son Rex is the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, as I just said, but then his brother Rob is a defensive coordinator assistant, I believe. So rest in peace, Buddy Ryan, as well.
All right. Now we'll go into our actual topics now. As I said, we're going to start with the college baseball and softball World Series. We'll start with the softball World Series. It's been over for quite a while now, but we kind of want to loop it in with the baseball one that's going on currently. Either way, it was Oklahoma that won the softball World Series in 3 games, beating the Auburn Tigers. And it was a kind of a interesting series. The first game was a pretty close game, but Oklahoma's defense kind of came up big late in that one to help seal the victory. Game 2 was a little bit more exciting as Auburn had to come back from being down 7-0 in the second inning of that game. It looked like Oklahoma was going to run away with this one in a clean sweep, 2 games. But they came back from 7-0 down, ended up winning in extra innings. And speaking of defense, like in Game 1, they had a nice defensive play for them to spark them getting back into it and winning the game eventually, as one of their players robbed a home run from an Oklahoma player late in that one to keep it tied up late. And then Game 3 happened. It was more straightforward. Oklahoma won this one because they had their star pitcher on the mound again, Paige Parker, who pitched in Game 1. She came out and did what she does. She dominates the game, and she did that in Game 3. And then now we have Oklahoma. They are the women's college softball World Series champions for the 3rd time in program history, I believe, Oklahoma Sooners. And go Big 12, I'll say, because I am a Big 12 person. So go Big 12.
Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner picks up this one here in the College Softball World Series. Now, the baseball one is taking place between 2 teams, Coastal Carolina and Arizona, and that's currently underway. It's not over yet, I should say. It is Wednesday as we record this episode for you, and Game 3 is tonight, this Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, I believe, on ESPN. The Game 1, it was Monday night. Arizona shut out Coastal Carolina 3-0. And Game 2, Coastal Carolina came back and they beat Arizona 5-4. Last night's game was pretty nice. It was a pretty good game. It was tied up 2-2 in the 8th inning, but then Coastal Carolina got up to a 5-2 lead before Arizona came back later in that game to make it close, but ultimately fell short in the end. Now, of course, Game 3 tonight, as I said, it's going to come down to probably starting pitching, as both teams have gotten pretty solid starting pitching throughout this series and throughout the entire tournament, but it'll come down to starting pitching, I believe, and who can get the bats going against some good starting pitching, of course. I mean, defense wins championships, as is probably the mantra for a lot of sports. And for baseball, there's no bigger defender in baseball than your pitcher, because he ultimately changes the game if he can strike out guys, you know. And both these teams have been doing it. Last night, both pitchers had 10 Ks apiece. So they've been dominating on the mound, and it should come down to that, in my opinion. So who do you think is going to win this Game 3 tonight, Luke?
I'd really like to see Coastal Carolina win, just because it's a Cinderella team. They're a small Division I school, Division I AA for mostly all other sports. I know Penn State played them in football about 8 years ago now, but and that's really all I knew about them, because they really haven't done anything in the world of sports for anything else. And it'd be the first national title in program history for anything as well. So I'd really like to see Coastal Carolina win tonight and, hopefully get that national championship under their belt.
I'm going to take Arizona. I think their starting pitching is a little bit too strong for Coastal Carolina. Probably their pitcher that pitched in Game 1 will be on the mound tonight, and he shut them out in Game 1, so I think he can do it again. And ultimately, similarly to the Softball World Series, they're going to get their great pitcher on the mound again, and they're going to probably walk away with this win. I just think that. It would be nice for Coastal Carolina to win, sure, but ultimately I think it's going to be Arizona. So we'll move on now. We'll go to our NASCAR race that took place this weekend. And it hits Sonoma, California for the very first road race of the season on Sunday. Now, a road race is not your typical race, as there's a lot more twists and turns and more excitement, as probably for your casual race fans, probably more exciting than most, because, of course, the big trope about racing is that they're just going big left turn into big circles. But road racing kind of changes things up. They got more right turns, as people would say, little changing their right turns instead of the left that we're so used to in NASCAR. It makes for more exciting racing. It's more probably, I'd say, more legit racing, I would say, because you have to navigate these corners and turns a lot more precisely in a way. So either way, Tony Stewart won this race.
Smoke.
He won this race in this first race of this season, which is his final season in the chase. He'll be retiring after this past season, or this next season here as it finishes up. And this win broke an 84-race losing streak for him, dating back all the way to 2013. So Tony Stewart has not won since 2013, but now he did on Sunday. So that's pretty impressive for a guy like him. He's kind of a legend of the sport, and he hasn't won for 3 years now. So interesting. And that win actually makes it his 8th road race win, which is one behind Jeff Gordon, who has since retired last year, I do believe. So he's kind of forging out some more legacy as he kind of closes out his career here. So kind of a Kobe-esque, you could say. I heard someone say on SportsCenter or something like that, Kobe-esque in his performance. But he almost lost that race as he took the lead late in that race. He utilized the fuel strategy to get up in the front after a caution with about 20 laps or so left. And then he held off Denny Hamlin on that last lap to secure the victory after losing the lead on the last lap after he made some poor decisions on the course. As I mentioned earlier, you got to be precise. He made some mistakes going around some turns, lost the lead to Hamlin, took it over, ended up holding off Hamlin in the end, and getting to the winner's circle for the first time in 3 years. So kudos to Smoke, I guess. He's breaking the age barrier or something. I don't know.
Yeah, very happy for Tony Stewart. He's had a lot under his belt the past couple years, especially this year. He was injured while racing dune buggies, out in Arizona or California before the season started, and he broke his leg, and he couldn't. I think he broke his leg. He might have hurt his back though too, and he couldn't race there for the first, I don't know how many races it was. So he hasn't even raced a full season this year in his last year, and to get a win like this at a place like Sonoma. I mean, me personally, I don't like road courses. I think they're stupid, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, very happy for Tony Stewart, and especially too with going back a couple years, he didn't race in NASCAR because he was at a dirt track one weekend. NASCAR was off, and he killed somebody because the guy got out of his car because he thought Tony Stewart had purposely wrecked him, which he didn't. You can go back and watch the video on YouTube, just like you're listening to this right now. And the guy he killed the guy, but he wasn't charged or anything like that. So I'm sure that's been pressuring him a lot to win, since he's been back in NASCAR.
Also, that win helps him put himself into the conversation for the chase at the end of the season, maybe winning a title in the future down the line here in his final season, which would be, I'm sure, very good for Tony Stewart. He would love that, I'm sure, in his little swan song type. Peyton Manning-esque there. We'll go Peyton Manning-esque, win a championship in your final season. So
Peyton Manning, Kobe Bryant, Tony Stewart's retiring, Jeff Gordon just retired. Who else is going to retire, Corey?
I don't know. Everyone's starting to retire now. Everyone's getting older.
Charles Woodson.
Charles Woodson, yes. All these great players in these sports are starting to retire. And plus you have coaches, like we mentioned, Summit and Ryan. People are dying in the sports world this year. It's like the year of death here in 2016. And so many iconic sports legends have died. So many are retiring from the games.
Muhammad Ali.
We have Ryan now, Summit, Gordie Howe, so many people. Not just in sports, other places too. Like, of course, we have Prince who died.
China
and wrestling, a bunch of other people in wrestling too. It's just so weird this year. It's just
Balls Mahoney.
So many people have just passed away.
Jack Mulligan. It's very sad, but it's part of life, and we just have to move on.
Yep. And NASCAR will move on next week as they hit Daytona for once again since the Daytona 500, which is at the beginning of the year. They hit Daytona Beach, Florida, for next week's race.
The Saturday night
on NBC.
First one on NBC this year. Yeah, they're done with Fox. They'll be on NBC, USA, NBC Sports Network for the rest of the season. And I remember last year, the Pepsi 400, Coke 400, whatever it's called now. Last year, it was in rain delay for about 3 hours. And then they started the race a little after 11 o'clock Eastern time. And then they raced until about 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning. And I remember I stayed up and watched it. Because it was, racing is only on once a week. You either watch it or you don't watch it. And it involved a big crash at the end of the race in which Austin Dillon went flying through the air at probably close to over 200 miles an hour. And luckily he survived. And they were, questioning it because he drives the number 3 car now. Dale Earnhardt drove the number 3 car most of his career. He switched from number 2 and the Wrangler Chevrolet back in 1980s. But anyways, he had crashed in 2001, as many people might know, and lost his life doing what he loved. So a lot of people were saying it was a lot like that, but luckily Austin Dillon survived. And Austin Dillon's a grandson of Richard Childress, and Richard Childress was the crew chief for Dale Earnhardt. That's another fun fact for all you folks out there.
All right, move past NASCAR now and go into tennis. It's back again, and this time we have Wimbledon. We did the French Open a couple weeks ago, took you through all that. Now it's Wimbledon, taking place from the All England Tennis Club, or All England Lawn Tennis Club in England, of course. And the storylines here are basically the same as the French Open almost, except there's a little bit difference. Especially on the women's side, it's mostly the same, but on the men's side, it's a little different. Can number 1 in the world, Novak Djokovic, make it 5 straight majors here at the All England Club here at Wimbledon? He's in the same part of the draw as Roger Federer, the number 3 ranked player in this draw and in the world, I do believe as well. Those two are on a collision course for the semifinal round moving forward, as well as number 2 seed and number 4 seed Andy Murray, and then Stanislas Wawrinka. They possibly could meet in the semifinals again after doing so in the French Open as well. Women's side, again, can Serena Williams win that 22nd Grand Slam title, tying her with Steffi Graf that she tried to do in the last major, the French Open, where she lost to Garbine Muguruza, who is setting off on her journey to try to make it back-to-back slam wins, seeing what she can do after winning one major. Maybe the confidence rises, or maybe the pressure gets to her. We'll have to see about that. Into the actual action now. Djokovic, Murray, and Federer all won their first matches in straight sets. I know Djokovic is through already to the second round. I do believe Federer should be as well. They played today on Wednesday. I think they both got through pretty easily from what I saw. I know Djokovic did. Federer, I saw he already won the first set 6-love against Daniel Willis of Great Britain, but I don't know about that yet. So, and then Stanislas Wawrinka, the 4 seed, he won his first match in 4 sets against a young American Taylor Fritz. A nice competitive match to kick his tournament off. Women's side, Serena, she won her first match in straight sets. Number 2 seed Muguruza won her match in a tight match in a 3-set match against Georgie of Italy. And the Radwanska, she's the 3 seed. She won her first match in straight sets. So did Aussie Open champion number 4 seed Angelique Kerber. She won her first match in straight sets. Only 2 upsets to speak of so far in this first round, both on the men's side. Number 17 seed Gael Monfils lost to his fellow Frenchman Jeremy Chardy in 5 sets, 6-2 in the 5th. And in that match, he lost his 3 sets that he did lose in pretty dominating fashion. He lost those sets. He lost them in 6-0, 6-1, and 6-2, the 3 sets that he lost. Won the other 2 sets 7-6 and 6-4, tightly contested sets, but he ended up falling in the end. And then number 20 seed Kevin Anderson from South Africa lost in the first round to Dennis Istomin in 5 sets, 6-3 in the 5th. We'll continue to bring you Wimbledon coverage as it progresses through each week. Probably in about 2 weeks' time, we'll be able to give you the full finals and semifinal rounds. That'll probably be 2 weeks from now. And for now, we'll both just kind of do the top 4, how they're doing, and then any upsets. Not really go too in-depth like we did in the French Open. It's a little too much, I think. So we'll just keep going through like we did today. And then once we reach the finals, then that's where we'll get a little more in-depth about it. So nevertheless, the Wimbledon is kicked off, and we will continue to bring you coverage of that moving forward.
Do you like sports cards, video games, or collecting interesting items? Then Pastime Collectibles is the place for you. Pastime Collectibles is a collectible store in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. Pastime Collectibles sells hobby boxes, vintage cards, Nintendo games and systems, coins, jerseys, memorabilia, and more. Be sure to like Pastime Collectibles on Facebook and follow at Pastime Collect on Twitter. You can contact them by calling 814-762-1410, messaging them on either Facebook or Twitter, or you can even email them at pastime.collectibles@gmail.com. Do you like hunting, fishing, or talking about the outdoors? If so, you need to check out Downriver Outdoors, an outdoors channel on YouTube that brings you some of the best footage of hunting and fishing from the backwoods of Central PA. They also tell some great outdoors stories. Be sure to subscribe to Downriver Outdoors on YouTube.
The NBA draft took place this past Thursday from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and it saw pretty much a interesting draft, I would say, as after the first probably 8 picks or so, the whole draft kind of got out of order and kind of weird to predict what was going to happen next. Teams were trading all over the place. Interesting people were getting picked at random selections that no one thought they would be. So let's get it started. And for the NBA draft, we're going to play a little game we like to call Good Pick, Bad Pick. I am going to read off these draft picks one by one, and I'm going to throw it over to Luke to say whether he thinks it's a good pick or a bad pick. Pretty straightforward. And this is in his opinion, by the way. It's his own opinion if he thinks it's a good pick or a bad pick. So let's try not to get on him too much. The number 1 overall selection belonged to the Philadelphia 76ers, and with it they took the likely number 1 pick. It was Ben Simmons, the forward out of LSU. Bad pick, good pick or bad pick, Luke?
Good pick.
All right. The Lakers had the 2nd selection for the 2nd straight year. They took Brandon Ingram, the forward out of Duke. Good pick or bad pick?
Good pick.
The Celtics, the 3rd selection, getting it from the Brooklyn Nets, a part of the Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce deal years ago. They took Jaylen Brown, the forward out of Cal. Good pick, bad pick for your Celtics, Luke?
Good pick.
All right. The 4th pick belonged to the Phoenix Suns, and they chose Dragan Bender, a forward center combo guy out of Croatia. Good pick, bad pick?
Bad pick.
The Timberwolves, with the 5th selection, chose the first guard off the board. It was Chris Dunn out of Providence.
Good pick.
The Pelicans had the 6th pick, and they chose another guard, 2nd straight guard, and it was Buddy Hield, the senior from Oklahoma. Luke?
Good pick.
Nuggets chose 7th, getting this pick from the New York Knicks, a part of the Carmelo Anthony deal, I do believe. And they chose Jamal Murray, the 3rd straight guard out of Kentucky. Good pick, back pick?
Good pick.
The Kings, with the 8th selection, chose Marquise Chris, the forward out of Washington, but then sent him to the Suns, a part of a deal. The Kings got 2 later picks in this first round we'll get to later. So Luke, good pick, bad pick?
Bad pick.
The Raptors chose 9th, getting this pick from Denver via New York, a part of the Andrea Bargnani deal that sent the former number 1 overall pick Bargnani to the Knicks. And they chose Jacob Poeltl, the center out of Utah.
Good pick.
The Bucks chose 10th, and they chose Thon Maker, forward out of Australia.
Good pick.
The Magic, they chose 11th and picked Domantas Sabonis, forward out of Gonzaga. who then got traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder, part of a deal that sent Victor Oladipo and Sabonis and Ersan Ilyasova to the Thunder for Serge Ibaka. So good pick, bad pick.
Good pick.
All right. The Hawks picked 12th. Well, they didn't technically pick 12th. The Utah Jazz picked for them as part of the deal that sent Jeff Teague to the Pacers. And with that pick, the Jazz technically picked Taurean Prince, forward out of Baylor, but he's going to Atlanta.
Bad pick.
The Suns picked 13th, and they got this pick from Washington. This pick actually going to the Kings, a part of that deal we mentioned earlier. For the 8th pick, Marquise Chris. They chose Georgios Papagiannis, center out of Greece.
Bad pick.
The Bulls picked 14th to round out the lottery, and they chose Denzel Valentine, forward out of Michigan State.
Good pick.
The Nuggets got the 15th pick from the Houston Rockets, and they chose Juan Hernan Gomez, forward out of Spain.
Bad pick.
Your Celtics picked yet again, Luke, in the first round, the 16th pick from Dallas, and they chose Gershon Yabusele, forward out of France.
Good pick.
The Grizzlies were 17th, and they chose Wade Baldwin IV, guard out of Vanderbilt.
Good pick.
At 18, the Pistons selected Henry Ellison, the forward out of Marquette.
Good pick.
The Nuggets picked 19th, and getting this pick from the Portland Trail Blazers, and they chose with that pick Malik Beasley, guard out of Florida State.
Bad pick.
The Nets got the 20th pick from the Indiana Pacers, a part of a deal that sent George Hill. No, not George Hill. This is the pick for Thaddeus Young that they traded to Indiana, and they got Chris LeVert with that pick, guard out of Michigan.
Karis LeVert.
Karis.
Good pick.
The Hawks, they chose 21st, their actual pick, not the pick from pick 12. This is their actual pick in the draft. They chose DeAndre Bembry, forward out of St. Joseph's.
Good pick.
The Hornets picked 22nd, and they chose Malachi Richardson, a forward out of Syracuse, but he ended up going to the Kings, a part of a trade.
Bad pick.
The Celtics, for the third time in this first round, chose Ante Sijic, a center out of Croatia.
Good pick.
The 76ers had this 24th pick from Miami via Cleveland. They chose Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, forward out of France.
Bad pick.
The Clippers had that 25th pick, and with it they chose Bryce Johnson, the forward out of UNC, the North Carolina.
Good pick.
The 76ers had the 22nd pick the 26th pick from the Oklahoma City Thunder via the Denver Nuggets and Cleveland. And they chose Furkan Korkmaz, guard out of Turkey.
Bad pick.
The Raptors had 27th pick and chose Pascal Siakam, forward out of New Mexico State.
Bad pick.
The Suns had the 28th pick, getting it from Cleveland via Boston. They chose Skal Labissiere, who ends up going to, he's a center out of Kentucky, he ends up going to Kings. The other pick, a part of that trade for the 8th pick, Marquise Chris.
Good pick.
The Spurs, with the 29th pick, picked Deontay Murray, guard out of Washington.
Good pick.
And to round out the first round, the Warriors chose Damian Jones, center out of Vanderbilt.
Good pick.
Now, there's 2 rounds to the NBA draft, only 2 rounds. We won't go into the entire second round. Give you some second round notables here. And we'll start with the very first pick of that second round, a guy who many thought would go in that first round, but fell all the way to round 2 because of all these weird picks and trades that you could maybe tell by going through that list that we just read off why he fell this far. But the Celtics chose Deontay Davis, forward out of Michigan State, but they ended up trading him to the Grizzlies, along with another pick that they picked later in the second round. So, Luke, is that a good pick or a bad pick, Deontay Davis, for the Grizzlies now?
Bad pick.
34th pick, Tyler Ulis, a guard out of Kentucky.
Good pick.
Number 36th pick was Marcus Brogdon, a longtime Virginia Cavalier guard.
Good pick.
At 50, the Pacers select Georges Niang, forward out of Iowa State.
Good pick.
And then I skipped over pick 42 because pick 42 and pick 55 got swapped. 42, the pick was Isaiah Whitehead, guard out of Seton Hall, originally to the Jazz. And then pick number 55 was Marcus Page, guard out of North Carolina for the Nets, but they got swapped. So Whitehead's going to the Nets, Page is going to the Jazz. So we'll start with Whitehead. Luke, is he a good pick or a bad pick for the Nets?
Bad pick.
And for Page going to the Jazz, what do you think about him?
Good pick.
He's a good pick for Luke. This is a very interesting draft because There's a lot of interesting picks made, especially guys going really high in the lottery for some reason, like that Papagiannis from Greece. He made it into the lottery somehow. I don't understand that at all. A bunch of international guys got picked, I know.
Yeah, 26 international players were selected in the 2016 NBA draft, surpassing the previous record of 21 that was set in 2003. 14 in the first round and 12 in the second round.
That also includes guys that's not just international guys, I'm assuming, because there's guys that are international, quote unquote, but they played college basketball. Ben Simmons, he's from Australia. Yeah, Jamal Murray, he's Canadian. Jacob Pertl, he's Austrian, I do believe. Sabonis, he's Lithuanian. So there's a bunch of guys that actually played college basketball who probably are considered under that international thing there. But nevertheless, very weird draft. I mean, a bunch of guys that went way higher than they should have. I already mentioned Papagiannis, but Taurean Prince out of Baylor, mock drafts had him at like going regular old 21st pick for the Hawks, not at 12. Let's take a look here. Thon Maker, I know you didn't even know who he was at one point because of his ridiculous name, but we'll leave it at that.
That's another story to be told someday.
That's a story to be told on another day.
Maybe in a new segment called Story Time with Luke.
Yeah, we were in discussions about having a Story Time with Luke segment on Across the Goal Line because Luke loves to tell sports stories about little tidbits about his life and sports that connect so interestingly, I would say. But maybe we'll get that in there. I know we already had a bunch of them that could be considered that. Christian Hackenberg being drafted, all the stuff about Christian Hackenberg that he's ever said on the show pretty much has been story time with Luke. But
let us know if you want me to do this. Use the hashtag ATGL16 while you're at it.
Yeah, use the hashtag ATGL16. Answer that on Twitter. You can answer it on Facebook too. Answer it on Instagram, I think you could probably. Yeah. Luke's telling me yes. So yeah, tell us if you want to see Story Time with Luke as maybe a consistent little segment on Across the Goal Line in the future. But we'll move on now to our second draft that we're going to review for the weekend. This was Friday and Saturday. The NHL draft took place in Buffalo at the home rink of the Buffalo Sabres. Niagara Center, I do believe is called.
First Niagara Center,
yes it is. And the consensus number one got picked yet again in this draft as the Toronto Maple Leafs selected Austin Matthews, center from the Zurich Lions in Switzerland. Now, he played in Switzerland, but he's actually an American-born player. He's from Arizona, and because he's from Arizona, he's technically an American-born player, as I just mentioned. He's the first American-born number one overall pick in the NHL draft since Patrick Kane in 2007, and that is our stat of the week this week. Austin Matthews is the first American-born number one pick since Patrick Kane in 2007. Luke, you wanted to mention something.
Yeah, I wanted to hold you back there real quick before you said the number one overall pick, but I couldn't get your attention. But talking about those Buffalo Sabres, I guess we could say this is a little story time with Luke right now. But there's some news that broke down in Central PA about the Buffalo Sabres. They're going to be playing a preseason game. Yes, a preseason hockey game for the NHL against the Minnesota Wild at Pagola Ice Arena over in State College, where Penn State is located at. And Terry Pagola is the owner of the Buffalo Sabres and the Buffalo Bills and a proud graduate of the Pennsylvania State University. He donated a lot of money, and they named the new ice arena that they built a couple years ago after him. So they were looking for a place to play that preseason game, and Penn State was chosen, and very excited to possibly go to it because we don't get stuff like that around here very often. But move on. Who was the second pick in the 2016 NHL draft there, Corey?
The second pick, first pick, if you don't remember, you probably should, is Austin Matthews from the Zurich Lions, centerman. But the second pick, the Winnipeg Jets had that second pick, and it was Patrick Laine, right winger for Tappara. He is from Finland, explaining why his name is spelled the way it is. If you don't know how to pronounce it, I know Luke wouldn't. He's not exactly the best foreign name pronouncer in the world. So
yeah, my last name is French, so I know probably A couple people have had trouble, pronouncing that, seeing my last name on our picture there here on YouTube. But go on.
The third pick was the not Toronto, but the Columbus Blue Jackets. They chose Pierre-Luc Dubois, a left winger from Cape Breton from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Interesting pick. I thought it would be the guy that went fourth to the Oilers, Jesse Puljujärvi, the right winger from Kärpät. He's also Finnish, as is Laine, the second pick in this draft. The number 5 pick belonged to the Vancouver Canucks, and they chose another Finnish player, although he played in Canada this past season, Ole Juolevi, defenseman for the London Knights in the Ontario Hockey League. His teammate went 6th to the Flames, Matthew Tkachuk, left winger. He also plays for London, as I just mentioned. He went to the Flames. Arizona Coyotes had the 7th pick, and they chose with that pick Clayton Keller, centerman, last played for the USA Under-18 team. The Sabres, the hometown Sabres for this draft, picked 8th, and they chose Alexander Nylander, left winger for Mississauga in the Ontario Hockey League. Canadians, they chose 9th, and they chose Mikhail Sergachev, defenseman for the Windsor Spitfires, also in that Ontario Hockey League. The Colorado Avalanche chose Tyler Yost with the 10th overall selection, a centerman out of Penticton. Centerman's going in the next 3 picks here, starting with Yost. The Senators, they chose Logan Brown with the 11th pick. Actually, it was the Devils who selected this pick. They ended up swapping picks here at this point, so the Devils got the 12th pick from the Senators. But Logan Brown, the 11th pick, going to the Ottawa Senators, centerman out of Windsor for the Windsor Spitfires this past season. The Devils, as I just mentioned, getting the 12th pick from the Senators, swapping those picks. They got Michael McLeod, centerman for Mississauga, the Ontario Hockey League. 13th overall selection belonged to the Carolina Hurricanes, and they chose a defenseman, Jake Bean, out of Calgary. The Bruins chose Charles McAvoy with the 14th overall pick, a defenseman from Boston University, so he's sticking right in Boston there, Mr. McAvoy. The Wild, with the 15th overall selection, chose Luke Kunin, a centerman from Wisconsin, 2 straight college hockey players back-to-back in the draft.
Hey, another Luke.
Another Luke, yes it is. The Arizona Coyotes got the 16th pick from the Detroit Red Wings as they traded that pick and also got Pavel Datsyuk from the Red Wings. Although Datsyuk won't be playing in the NHL next season, they still got him from the Red Wings. The Red Wings dishing him off, mostly for probably cap space, as many are saying, to try to get big hot free agent Steven Stamkos in the upcoming free agency period, which is going on.
Who just met with the Maple Leafs today as well.
He just met with the Maple Leafs today, who now have that number 1 overall selection, Matthews. So we'll have to see. We'll have to keep our eye on Stamkos, where he goes later on in free agency. But that 17th pick for the Arizona Coyotes was Jacob Chychrun, defenseman for the Sarnia Sting in the Ontario Hockey League. Then the Predators chose next at 17. They chose Dante Fabro, defenseman from Penticton. The Jets, the Winnipeg Jets, had their second pick, getting it from my Philadelphia Flyers, as the Flyers got a couple of second-round picks, or they got a second-round pick from the Jets, as well as the 22nd pick, 22nd pick, I do believe, that they picked later on, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the Jets chose with this 18th selection Logan Stanley, defenseman from Windsor. He's a huge defenseman. He's 6'7", one of the tallest players in the league now, rivaling Zdeno Chara, who's on his last legs as the captain for the Bruins. The 19th pick belonged to the New York Islanders, and they chose Kiefer Bellows, left winger for the U.S. He last played for the U.S. Under-18 team. The Red Wings finally got to select in this first round, and with it they chose Dennis Cholowski, defenseman for Chilliwack. Yeah, that's an interesting place now, isn't it? Luke's giving me a face that says, what in the world is Chilliwack? I'm not quite sure either. But the Hurricanes, they had another selection in this draft, picking 21st in this draft. They chose Julian Gauthier, right winger for Val d'Or, Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, I do believe. The Flyers now, my Philadelphia Flyers, got that 22nd pick, and they chose German Robstoff, a centerman for Team Russia, the Under-18 Team Russia team. The Panthers had that 23rd pick, and they chose Henrik Borgstrom, centerman for Hilf Jr. out of Sweden. The Ducks then chose 24th, and they got Max Jones, big left winger from the London Knights, another London product coming to the NHL. The Stars with the 25th pick. No, let me see here. Let me count. I don't have the numbers written down. I just kind of going off of the order that I have them in. So, 24th, I think. 25th, 24th, 25th. We'll see in the end. Let me see here. 30, 29, 28, 27, 26. 25th pick. He's the 25th pick. Riley Tuft, left winger out of Blaine. The Blues, 26th pick. Tage Thompson, centerman out of UConn, another college hockey product in the NHL. The Tampa Bay Lightning select Brett Howden, centerman from Moose Jaw. Luke, that's another good one for you. That's Canadian, I do believe. The Capitals had the 28th pick, and they chose Lucas Johansson, another Johansson for the Capitals. I think I have a few of those on their team already. I don't know why they need another one, but either way, he's a defenseman out of Kelowna. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but I'm not really quite sure what that is. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. Either way, Lucas Johansson, he's probably Swedish, I guess, based on the name, based on his last name, based on the name of the place, whatever. The Boston Bruins picked 29th, the next to last pick in the first round. They chose Trent Frederick, centerman, last played for the USA under-18 team. And the final pick of the first round, pick number 30, was for the Anaheim Ducks, of course getting it from the Pittsburgh Penguins, who had won the Cup, and they would have been this pick, but not anymore, as the Ducks get it. They chose Sam Steele, centerman from Regina.
Once again this week on Across the Goal Line, we got some breaking news for you. The Canadiens trade former Norris Trophy winner PK Subban to the Nashville Predators for 5-time All-Star defenseman Shea Weber.
Oh my goodness, that is big breaking news right there. That is a huge swapping of big talent for their teams, big defensemen for their teams, respective teams. Now, Subban going to the Predators, and I don't know if that really helps them out as much. Shea Weber was a huge part of their blue line, one of the top defenses in the league, defensive line pairings, him and Roman Josi for the Predators, and now that's broken up. He moves to Montreal, and I'm not quite sure. It kind of seems like a pretty even trade, I would say, but I think this kind of helps the Canadiens more, getting Shea Weber, the veteran, huge, big guy, great defenseman. He's always been a great defenseman. I believe he's the captain in Nashville. Now he's moving on to a different team. That's an interesting thing there. Something about captains being traded. I know Phil Kessel, I do believe, was a captain in Toronto when he got traded to the Penguins, ended up winning the Cup. But another guy, I think Andrew Ladd was the captain of the Winnipeg Jets, possibly. I'm not 100% sure on that. He got traded to the Chicago Blackhawks this past season, so interesting thing moving on. But
you think that was good breaking news, big breaking news, I should say? Well, we were just talking about Steven Stamkos. He decided, he said he met with the Maple Leafs today, but he just said, you can cancel the sweepstakes. I've decided to return to Tampa Bay. So Stamkos is going to re-sign with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Well, taking a lot of the drama out of it. I know something that a LeBron James wouldn't do. If we're referencing the decision again, I don't think Luke wants to bring that up again.
No.
He hates it. But taking all the drama out of it, we don't have to worry about talking about Steven Stamkos now. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to, but not anymore.
But speaking of LeBron, too, I mean, we might as well say it. He did opt out of his current deal with the Cavaliers yesterday, and he can make, if he decides to, re-sign, he can make a max of $90 million. Yes, $90 million that he does not need, that we could possibly use here for,
everything and anything.
Yes. But he decided to opt out. He can, sign elsewhere if he wants to this summer. He's technically a free agent, but he did say he's going to re-sign with Cleveland. But we'll just have to find out and see. Free agency starts this Friday, July 1st. Today, if you are listening to it, because this will be uploaded that day, Friday, July 1st, 2016, at approximately whatever time we feel like putting it up. But, we just had some more breaking news for all you listeners out there.
Talk about James for a second. Yeah, he did say he's coming back to Cleveland. He has already said that. Don't be surprised if he does go somewhere else. I mean, he did it before. Why can't he do it again?
He's LeBron James. He can do whatever the hell he wants because he is LeBron James. I just said that. So, but I'm not going to get into it anymore. I've already Said my piece about it. I hate them. It's a whole big mess, as I said last week, and that's that.
NBA free agency will be highlighted more so by Kevin Durant, obviously. We'll talk about him a little later in the show, Kevin Durant, a little bit later on Goal Line Stan.
Does he go to Cleveland?
We'll get to that, Luke. But Stamkos, going back to Stamkos, going back to Tampa Bay, he must think that he can still do it. I mean, they came pretty close. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals, or in the Stanley Cup Finals the year prior to that. They lost to the Penguins, of course, this year in 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. So maybe he thinks he can. Maybe they could get some guys, add to the depth of their lineup. They'll get their goalie back. They didn't have their goalie in that series against the Penguins, so Ben Bishop. And Luke again.
Yeah, we got some more news. Former number 1 overall pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, Andrew Luck out of Stanford, played for Jim Harbaugh, who is currently at Michigan as the head coach, just signed a new 6-year deal worth a record of $140 million, and $87 million of that $140 million is guaranteed money, which is the highest in league history.
Oh, my goodness. Now we got this on our plates to digest.
So a little football news. I know we don't
a little
have
bit of everything
football
now
today, but
we're not even done talking NHL. But this is too much. $87 million guaranteed.
yes,
Is he? He's not really deserving of that, is he? What is he? He's made it to a couple conference championships, but that's about it. He hasn't made the Super Bowl. He hasn't won a Super Bowl.
he was a good fantasy player for me 2 years ago. I won my fantasy league because of him.
What about this year, though? He got injured.
I did have him again in my fantasy league, and he screwed me over because he got hurt.
Got hurt. Turnover machine. I mean, that's part of the offensive line being so crappy. You have to protect your quarterback to make him so he can actually make plays. But still, a turnover machine. He threw a lot of picks, a lot of fumbles.
And they didn't run the ball as much as I don't think they would have liked to with new running back Frank Gore last year as well.
The Colts have had a really tough time running the ball a lot recently in recent years. They've been so bad at running the ball. I mean, they got Trent Richardson that one year. I thought, at least at the time, oh, this is huge. They're going to be great. He was the biggest flop I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
almost.
Got drafted number 3 overall to Cleveland, then traded to Indianapolis, as you said, and then played for the Oakland Raiders. And he is currently signed to a contract with the Baltimore Ravens, but I think it is a practice squad contract, so we might not see him on the field next year.
Probably not. He's been very poor. He had a good season that first year in Cleveland, but after that, nothing. Similar to like RG3.
Another bust.
Another bust, you could say, because of, injury mostly. He did have a pretty good rookie season, but then that next season...
And that conversation was just like in 1998 when Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf were the 2 top quarterbacks going number 1 and number 2. And then in 2012, 14 years later, you had Andrew Luck and RG3 and the Colts in both of those drafts for the number 1 overall pick.
And they chose correctly, as it would look like.
They did.
But now they got a $141 million man in Andrew Luck. So, let's kind of bring it back here. NHL, we're talking NHL. I thought we were, at least. We wrapped up the draft. Now we're going to talk about... We'll start with the awards, the NHL awards. They were recent. Bunch of trophies given out on this night. A lot of... The interesting thing about NHL awards, they're not like typical awards. They don't just come out and say what... They have specific names for them, you know? Like, NBA is just... you're the MVP. They don't have like a super specific name for them. NHL's a little different. Like, for example, we have the Hart Trophy, which is for the MVP. So the MVP of this league this year was Patrick Kane, who we mentioned earlier. He was the former number 1 overall selection. He's the first American-born player to win this award in either a very long time or the first one ever. I don't remember. I saw the stat. I didn't write it down. That's my fault.
Come on, Corey. Get with it.
I'll get with it next week, hopefully. The Ted Lindsay Award is for the MVP as voted by the players. And Patrick Kane won that as well. So not only is the MVP for the league, he's also the MVP amongst his peers, which is you could argue a little bit more impressive than being voted MVP, because you are the MVP of everyone else around you. Like, the people say that you are the MVP, the guys that actually play the game. So that's an interesting thing. He was also the top scorer in the league, and with it, he gets the Art Ross Trophy. So Patrick Kane walked away with 3 trophies on this night. Impressive season for him. That's all I'll say about that. I hate Patrick Kane. I'll say it right now. I hate Chicago. He's the reason why the Flyers lost the 2010 Stanley Cup. I shouldn't get into it.
Is that why you hate him?
Yes, exactly why I hate him. He scored the game-winning goal against Philadelphia in 2010 to win the Stanley Cup for the first one of those 3 that they won in recent seasons. So I don't like Patrick Kane because of that, and that's why I don't like Chicago anymore. They're like my second or third least favorite team, of course, being right ahead of the Penguins, and then possibly the Rangers.
Well, I'll tell you somebody who's not going to like that.
Who is that, Luke?
His name is Phil Brooks, a.k.a. CM Punk, former wrestler in ROH, WWE. And right now he is signed with UFC, and he's going to be fighting at UFC 203 in Cleveland on September 10th against Mickey Gall. And we'll get more into UFC starting next month, about 2 weeks, with UFC 200.
That we will. Moving forward, the NHL awards, keeping it rolling. The Vezina Trophy for top goalie in the league was for Braden Holtby, the goalie for the Washington Capitals. He had a fantastic season. I do believe he tied the all-time mark for wins in a season by a goaltender set by Martin Brodeur, legendary New Jersey Devil goalie. The Norris Trophy for top defenseman in the league was won by Drew Doughty. He beat out guys Erik Karlsson for Ottawa Senators and Brent Burns of the San Jose Sharks. The Calder Trophy was for the Rookie of the Year, won by Artemi Panarin for the Chicago Blackhawks, beating out Connor McDavid and, on my Philadelphia Flyers, the young defenseman Shane Gostisbehere, who I think should have won it, because he was a single-handed reason. Not single-handed. I won't say single-handedly, but he was a major reason why we even made the playoffs this year. His insertion into the lineup due to injury for Mark Streit early in the season led to us getting a spark on the offensive end. He had a bunch of game-winning goals, a bunch of overtime game winners, helping us move forward and got us into the playoffs, I would say.
Yet you guys lost to the Washington Capitals, who the Pittsburgh Penguins beat, and then they beat the Lightning, and then they beat the Sharks in the Stanley Cup Finals, and they are your 2016 Stanley Cup champions.
Whatever, man. The Selk Trophy is for the top defensive forward, not to be confused with top defenseman. This is the forward that plays a lot of defense. It was won by Anze Kopitar for the Los Angeles Kings, joining Drew Doughty as a top or an award getter on this night for the Kings. He also won the Lady Byng Award for sportsmanship, Anze Kopitar did. And then finally, the Jack Adams Award for the Coach of the Year was won by Barry Trotz of the Washington Capitals, as he led the Capitals to the President's Trophy, or AKA most points in the league this past season. They had like 120-some points or something like that. I don't remember. They clinched really early in the season. But
yet they still lost.
I was about to say that. I didn't want you to say it, but oh well. Because I don't need you rubbing it in anymore. But anyway. Also, the NHL schedules recently came out. A bunch of interesting matchups. And I know for a fact the Flyers start out actually on a road trip on the West Coast to start out the season. I know that much. I believe their first game is in Los Angeles, then they go to Arizona, and then they go to Anaheim or something like that. They start like on a West road trip. I don't understand it, but oh well. Either way, I'm going to highlight 4 games. They're 4 pretty big games. You could say they're not really that big anymore. The first couple were probably really huge, but now they're kind of tapering off. They're outdoor games for the NHL, starting with the Winter Classic back however long ago. But the first one was, I think, the Penguins and the Sabres.
Yeah, in Buffalo. In Orchard Park, where the Bills play at, in 2007, I think.
2007, possibly. I know.
January. I think it was January 1st, 2007.
Yeah, that was the first one of those. Now they've expanded it. Now they have 4 games that are going to be played outdoors this upcoming season. The October 23rd game is called the Heritage Classic. It is going to be in Winnipeg, and it'll feature the Winnipeg Jets taking on the Edmonton Oilers. January 1st, which is normally the Winter Classic, but it's not this year. I forget why. I think it's something to do with the New Year being on a certain day. I think it's Sunday. I think New Year's on a Sunday, and they don't want to compete with football on that day. I think that's what it is. So January 1st, New Year, is the Centennial Classic, which will be in Toronto, which features the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Detroit Red Wings. And then The second, the day after, to not conflict with football, the Monday, is the actual Winter Classic, which is going to take place in St. Louis, as the Blues will take on the Chicago Blackhawks. And then February 18th is the Stadium Series game, and it'll be in Pittsburgh, where the Penguins will take on my Philadelphia Flyers. Luke's Penguins against my Flyers Stadium Series. I'll be sure to tune in. I know Luke will too.
Got that right.
Got that right. We won't be near each other. We won't be in the same room. Guaranteed. We won't talk about it because it could get nasty.
If we were, yeah, exactly. If we were in the same room, one of us would probably wind up dead.
Not much more you can say, I guess. One of us might end up dead. It's about as extreme as you can get right there. Anyway, we'll wrap up our NHL discussions right there and move on to goal line stand, the quick round bull crap. You know what it is by now if you keep listening to our show. But anyway, question number 1. Around 6 teams are currently pursuing Kevin Durant, which is why this is what we're saying. I said earlier why we mentioned him later. This is why 6 teams are pursuing him. We have the Golden State Warriors, your Boston Celtics, Miami Heat, Los Angeles Clippers, the Thunder, his current team, and the San Antonio Spurs. So where should Kevin Durant go if he wants to win a NBA championship?
Well, before I answer that question, I want to go back to the Hockey Stadium Series game between the Penguins and the Flyers. They're playing in Pittsburgh the first year. They're playing in Philadelphia the second year. And there's been talks about them possibly playing in the middle of the state of Pennsylvania at Beaver Stadium, home of Penn State, where Penn State plays football at. Seats over 110,000 people. So why not have a hockey game there? He played a hockey game a couple years ago at Michigan Stadium, home of the Michigan Wolverines. I think it was the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings. And that's one of the biggest stadiums in college football. So why not play another Winter Classic or an outdoor game at another giant college football stadium?
All right, so now the question where should Kevin Durant go if he wants to win an NBA championship?
Can you please read off the teams again?
All right, we have the Warriors, your Celtics, the Heat, the Clippers, his current team, the Thunder, and the Spurs.
I'd really like to see him come to Boston, but unfortunately, I don't think he will. I think he's either going to re-sign with Oklahoma City or he's going to start his own team up in Seattle. So he's going to re-sign with Oklahoma City.
You don't think he's going to go anywhere? You think he's going to stay put?
No.
All right. For me, I'm going to get on this. If he wants to win a title, honestly, I think he should probably go to the Spurs because they are a championship franchise. They know how to win. They'll be under a great coach, Greg Popovich. He'll create the new big three in San Antonio, Kawhi Leonard, LaMarcus Aldridge, and him, to replace the old big three, Parker, Ginobili, and Duncan. So,
yet they still have Tim Duncan, Manu, and Tony Parker. So maybe a big 6.
It's a big 6, quote unquote, but it's not like a big 6, because those 3 guys are, of course, on their last legs.
Still, all of those guys would still be together.
Yes.
And Tim Duncan said he's coming back next year, but they have to get a money issue resolved. And especially with money, if you wanted all 6 of those guys, a lot of those guys are going to have to take pay cuts too. So a reason why I could see him re-signing Oklahoma City and not going to San Antonio.
I mean, you have to do those things if you want to win a title. And if he wants to win a title, you got to take that pay cut. I mean, we talk about LeBron James, him making $90 million or whatever. He makes so much money from ads, advertising his shoes, Nike and stuff. Durant doing the same thing. You don't need all that money in a contract when you have all these ads.
Who we just talked about.
When you have all these ads that you got, you don't need all this money if you got all these endorsements and stuff. So.
And we got details on the Stamkos deal. It was an 8-year, $68 million deal.
8 years, $68 million. All right. He's going to be in there for a while now, I guess. He doesn't want to leave Tampa Bay. We'll have to see about him. All right. Second question, Luke.
I mean, why would he leave Tampa Bay? Tampa is in Florida. It's always nice and hot out, rather than going to Toronto or Detroit, where it's mostly cold all year long.
To win a championship.
Look at LeBron. He left Cleveland to go to Miami.
For a totally different reason. It wasn't just climate, of course. He wanted to play with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. That was a big plan. Either way, We're going to get to the second question because, Luke, this is a very personal one for you. The Auburn Tigers and the Penn State Nittany Lions, they have scheduled a home-and-home series against each other for the 2021 and 2022 seasons. What are your thoughts on that?
Very excited to see the Auburn Tigers come up to Happy Valley for the first of 2 games in a home-and-home series, as you said. Last time Penn State and Auburn met was in the 2003 Capital One Bowl, in which Auburn won by a score of 13-9. It was Larry Johnson's last game as a Nittany Lion. He got drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs 3 months later with a 27th overall pick in the first round there. Herm Edwards was the coach, but blah, 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 blah. Story time with Luke again. But anyways, yeah, very excited about Auburn and Penn State getting to play each other in 2021-22. And Penn State also is going to be playing West Virginia and Virginia Tech around that same time. So very excited, as I said. And it's good for the world of college football, too, because in previous years, a lot of teams have been playing a lot of small schools, say MAC schools like Buffalo, Ball State, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan. I just named off all the small Michigan schools other than Michigan and Michigan State, if you didn't notice. But so very excited to see teams be playing bigger schools during the regular season. We don't have to wait until the bowl season, too. So, yeah, very excited to see Penn State and Auburn play in 2021-22, as I've said, I think 5 times now. But next question, please.
All right, final question for Goal Line Stand is about the Olympics, which don't start till August. But,
Ooh, the Olympics.
But Rio de Janeiro governor is worried that the Olympics could be a failure due to budget problems that threaten security. Also, the Zika virus, which has seen many people pulling out of the Olympics, not going because of this Zika virus. So, what are your thoughts on that? Could the Olympics be a failure?
They could be. First off, with the security reasons, issues, whatever they might be, they should have had this figured out way before they even awarded Rio de Janeiro with the Olympics for 2016 here this summer in 2 months in August. And then, with the Zika virus, yeah, if it's your first time going to the Olympics, do you risk your life with getting the virus or staying home? I mean, if it was my first time, I'd still go. But if you've been to the Olympics before, you've won medals, gold, bronze, silver medal, and whatever, sport it might be, I'd pull back, not go, and then go to the 2020 games that are in where, Corey?
Summer 2020, that would be in...
Tokyo.
Why'd you ask me?
Oh.
Why did you ask me where it was if you knew it already? God. Either way, okay. So yeah, the Olympics could be a failure for all these reasons, but whatever.
But they are in Tokyo, Japan, in 2020.
That is a fact.
To quote Corey.
To quote what you answered, whatever. Either way, all right. Moving on. Final thing.
Let's finish this up.
Question of the week this week involves those NHL schedules that we just got finished talking about a couple minutes ago. And what matchup are you most excited for this upcoming NHL season? Luke, what about you?
I think I said it earlier, the Stadium Series game between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. That's in Pittsburgh on February 18th. And then, as I said, next year they're going to be playing in Philly, either at the Link or at Citizens Bank Park. I know the Flyers have played at Citizens Bank Park before for a Winter Classic. But then, as I said, hopefully, they can come up here to Penn State and play an outdoor game there.
It's hard to go against that answer because it's outdoor game. It's kind of a big game. It's a rivalry game. Penn's Flyers. We like the respective teams. It's hard to go against that. If that's pretty exciting for us. It's a rivalry, So can't really go wrong with that answer. I'll go with the Stadium Series in Pittsburgh, February 18th. Penguins Flyers. Go Flyers.
Go Pens.
All right. If you're going to answer that question of the week, make sure you do that on all social media platforms, please. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything. I don't really care. Just answer that question of the week first, please. YouTube comment section. I almost forgot about that. YouTube comment section right down below here. So if you're answering that, once again, the question is, what matchup are you most excited for this upcoming NHL season? So that is where we're going to wrap it up for this edition of Across the Goal Line. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ATGL16. All of those links are available in the description of this video. Also, if you're answering that question of the week, as I just mentioned, on Twitter or Instagram, you can use the hashtag ATGL16 when doing so.
You can even use it on Facebook. We don't care.
Use it on Facebook too. It doesn't really mean as much on Facebook if you use a hashtag there, but yeah, do it there too if you want. And don't forget to email us any questions or concerns at acrossthegoalline2016@gmail.com. And for Luke Godsart, I'm Corey Maines, and we will see you on the next edition of Across the Goal Line live from the field.